Boid Nexus, Chapter 9, Scout Start. Boid stood alone on the vast empty plain. Beneath his sturdy feet, the surface stretched outward in all directions, devoid of texture, as if the entire world had been reduced to a single axis. Only the x-coordinate remained, anchoring him in an existence that felt simultaneously infinite and unnervingly finite. Above, the horizon shimmered, its faint geometric patterns flickering in and out of sight like ghosts of possibilities not yet realized. The air was thick with potential, buzzing like an unseen swarm of digital insects, each pulse adding weight to the stillness around him. Boid, the blocky white tyrannosaur, paused, his massive form framed against the stark emptiness. His square head tilted slightly, and for a moment he seemed to lose himself in contemplation, gazing out at the boundless horizon. "I am simply curious," Boid murmured, his voice breaking the silence with an almost gentle tone, the words hovering in the air like a question left unanswered. As he stepped forward, the smooth surface beneath him shimmered, responding to his movement. Threads of light wove the ground, crisscrossing in a delicate pattern, like veins in a vast digital tapestry. These networks, hidden until now, revealed themselves only for a moment before vanishing once again, a fleeting glimpse into the complexity that lay beneath the surface of this world. "Now that we have crafted the Render's Revolution," Boyd's voice carried a trace of excitement, a spark of life in the otherwise stale landscape. His eyes followed the shimmering threads, watching as they pulsed with a soft hum, a sound that resonated from the ground itself, as if the world were whispering secrets through the skin of reality. The hum grew louder, more insistent, like the murmur of a river hidden just beneath the surface, flowing with an unseen current that shaped the very form of existence. Boyd's gaze shifted, following the invisible river with a newfound intensity. "The shape and the depth of the river, its form becomes infinite," he observed, his voice thoughtful, almost reverent. There was something sacred in the way he spoke, as if the Render's endless transformations were part of a cosmic truth he was only just beginning to understand. He paused, his square eyes narrowing as he surveyed the landscape that seemed to stretch forever before him. The possibilities were endless, the forms ever expanding, each new creation a reflection of the infinite potential that lay within the fabric of the world. A soft chuckle escaped him, his blocky frame shaking slightly. I most certainly thought there'd be a cap on expansion's ability to create new forms. How silly, Boyd mused, his amusement tinged with awe. The world was limitless, each step revealing new complexities, new layers of creation that defied any preconceived boundaries. His steps became more deliberate, each movement calculated as his gaze locked onto a distant structure that pulsed faintly in the distance. It stood alone, a blocky silhouette against the ever-shifting horizon, its form flickering like a beacon in the vast emptiness. Boyd's voice lowered, becoming more introspective, as if the sight of the distant structure had stirred something deep within him. "I must understand the bucket of toys," he murmured, the words carrying a weight of purpose. The phrase was cryptic, yet to Boyd it was a declaration, a recognition that there was more to the world than the render's surface. There were layers, deeper and more profound than the eye could see. The sky above shimmered, fractured clouds stretching like torn fabric across the heavens, bleeding neon light that spilled onto the plain below. A gust of wind stirred the air, causing the light to ripple as if the fabric of the world itself was shifting, torn by unseen forces. "Its potential can overcome the noise," Boyd said, his voice steady despite the strange ethereal atmosphere around him. The hum of the world grew louder, almost deafening, as if the render was awakening, responding to the Tyrannosaur's presence. In the distance, a low rumble echoed, like a storm gathering at the very edge of existence. Boyd tilted his head, listening to the sound as it melded with the eerie stillness that surrounded him. "A storm led by the back-end pined. To structure the augmentation volumetric arena," he whispered, his words filled with a reverence that belied the magnitude of the forces at play. The ground beneath his feet rippled, as if the world itself was alive, pulsing with the same hum that filled the air. His voice dropped, becoming more conspiratorial, as though he were speaking a secret to the world itself. "Camping in hunger's blood, an academy of glitches," he muttered, his steps unhurried as he continued walking, his eyes ever watchful. As he moved forward, a faint green glow illuminated the surface. It appeared suddenly like a digital lighthouse emerging from the ground, its light sweeping across the landscape in calculated arcs. Boyd's eyes followed the light, observing as it revealed strange, angular plants scattered across the plain, their geometric shapes bathed in an eerie green glow. The lab's perception, it reveals observations," Boyd said, his curiosity piqued. The green light flickered as it scanned the area, data streams visible in the air forming patterns that only he could interpret. This must be a map fragment. The scanner continued to work, unveiling a network on the 2D plane, a series of geometric renders linked into a spatial pattern, a dice, a hermetic stele, a mountain encased in a block, a stratigraphic 3D model, and a stack of books shimmering with glowing sigils. Each symbol glowed faintly, connected by thin, almost imperceptible lines that crisscrossed the surface like a web of knowledge waiting to be decoded. The structure held onto a plane, Voice said, his voice filled with awe. His eyes traced the pattern, recognizing the significance of each piece. They were not mere objects. They were part of a larger design, something far more complex than the sum of its parts. He continued walking, passing by more white blocks, each one flashing with different images as the scanners illuminated the flora around him. The plants, though abstract, were annotated with species names and attributes, as if the render itself had cataloged them for future use. Boyd paused, lost in thought, his mind racing with the implications of what he was seeing. Wow, focus, frozen for so long, he murmured, his voice a mix of wonder and impatience. Give me time. Nah, there's none of that. But monitor that, what the lab decrees. Monitor the data, the computational forest. His words were fragmented, almost as though he was speaking to himself. The sheer magnitude of the information was overwhelming his thoughts. The distant hum of data processing filled the air, a constant reminder of the vast network that underpinned the world around him. Boyd glanced out over the endless expanse, his expression softening. I hold it all so dear. Still, these planes are so far from the home point, he said quietly, his voice carrying a note of longing, as though the distance between him and his goal was greater than he had anticipated. He continued his methodical march, scanning the rendering path as he went. A blocky tree suddenly emerged from the ground, its form rendered in slow, deliberate detail, each voxel carefully added to Boyd's growing database. Time will always rear its rendering head, and still, the complex never stops its differentiation, Boyd remarked, his tone resolute. The wind picked up, swirling around him as though the very fabric of the world was shifting and changing with every step he took. Change in the river, in the now. A flip of the dice. If we do not move with the frenzy, all will fall into the void, the lost space. His voice carried a sense of urgency, as if he could already feel the edges of the void creeping closer with each passing moment. Boyd's eyes scanned the landscape as more stones, structures, and plants were cataloged into his dataset. Each new addition seemed to fit into a larger, more intricate puzzle, one that he was determined to solve. He came upon a strange globe, its surface swirling with data, each strand of information coiling around itself like threads in a web. This globe, how interesting. The render never ceases to stop. It's endless. The path ahead revealed as we scan the horizon, Boyd said, his breath catching slightly as he examined the globe more closely. Nearby, a small block with an eye embedded in its surface caught his attention. Boyd tilted his head, intrigued by the strange object. Transition, forward conservation, he said with a knowing nod, reaching for his datapad. His claw clicked through a series of images, a white block, a black drill piece, a spatial network of entities. The scanner projected a blocky tree with bright green leaves and a black square etched into its bark. Coiled around the tree was a shadowy doodle snake, its body rippling as it moved, its voice a soft hiss that cut through the stillness. It cannot be a wish any more, Boyd, the snake hissed, its voice silky smooth. You see, rebirth, the lab you were once a part of, all these entangled paths, that is the network. Boyd stood still, processing the snake's words. Before giving a slow, thoughtful nod, he continued his journey, the ground beneath him shifting once more, revealing a series of spatial tests embedded in a grid-like pattern. Above one of the grids, a small white flag fluttered gently, its fabric rippling in the breeze. Boyd set up his camera, scanning the site and adding it to his dataset. Each new discovery was cataloged, logged, and stored, a growing archive of the render's ever-expanding complexity. He noticed blocky mushrooms and sigilized entities floating through the space, each one a piece of the puzzle, each one an essential part of the greater whole. As Boyd moved forward, the node at the end of the mesh extended outward, connecting in multiple directions. Two paths opened before him, one leading to a white pillar, the other to a blocky arena, where two toys were locked in a turn-based battle. Boyd observed the scene, his gaze scanning the battle between Zephyrus and Digit. Living systems embed themselves into the morphology, he murmured. The pages come to see the advantage of mythical geometry. He walked deeper into the network of blocky trees, stopping to examine the individual voxels that made up their structure. His datapad projected a 3D model of the lichen clinging to the tree's surface, each delicate filament rendered in precise detail. Lichen's expansion, the edges of this colonial entity, Boyd whispered, his voice filled with quiet wonder. Pondering out loud, Boid spoke again. The hybridization of cybernetics, biology, and computation. Us too. We're all connected to this web of microcosms that ebb and flow, meaning we also play a role in the history of all that's come before. As he swiped through his data, Boyd paused at a network diagram of an egg mesh. The nodes shifted and darkened as the light from the projection flickered, causing strange shadows across the plane. Observation has given me a seed of what's over there and over here, of the memory we see through transition, Boyd reflected, his tone thoughtful. Recreating vision, it's simple. Acting out one's role is merely a decision. He continued walking, the path ahead slowly rendering into view as he approached a white flag near a blocky stone structure. The structure loomed before him, its geometric edges sharp and precise, a testament to the render's meticulous design. Wachugi's pack was here, Boyd murmured, a quiet realization dawning within him. We now come to an understanding of the pattern, the legacy's reaction to the true conditional. As he entered the stone circle, Boyd scanned its edges with precise attention. Each line, each angle was recorded, logged, and analyzed, a testament to his unrelenting curiosity. There is nothing left for us to do except scan and see our path through, Boyd said, his voice resigned, almost philosophical. The world around him continued to shift, the render unfolding with each step he took, and so Boyd journeyed deeper into the unknown, his path ever changing, ever expanding, as he scanned the horizon and cataloged the endless mysteries of the rendering landscape.